Welcome to another Ariaswave Gold update. In this video, I'm going to talk about the long-term pattern and what's going on right now with gold and where do I expect it to go. Okay, so as you know, the long-term pattern is clear across these charts. They all seem to be producing a very similar pattern. Now, you could say that this is very similar for other markets like Dow Jones or even something like well, you can't really say that, but I'll say it anyway, like XLM, for example, right, where we have a BCDE pattern. Obviously this is just a much larger pattern of the same pattern. And if you had to like draw like a little comparison, you can see that there's a wave in the D wave, A in brackets B wave, and then you have a C in brackets wave, right? So, if you want to just compare that to what I believe is happening in XLM, you would be like around like the end of wave B, basically, right? Yeah, so it's a bit of a different correction than XLM on the small degree, but the point is that these patterns repeat at every degree of trend. Okay, obviously this is a long-term chart, right, of gold going back to early 1900s. So don't think that I mean that it's the same as XLM. Exactly. No, it's not. It's obviously different time frames, and different lengths of time, but the waves unfold regardless of time. Okay, they still unfold the same, and they still produce these patterns, which become clearer as more things develop. The key is to try and catch those moves before they happen, right? So basically, let's just get into this now. So this is basically the tail end or the last part of this C wave in brackets, right? So we had wave one, the GFC around that time was wave two, and then we had a wave three up until 2011, and then we had a wave four. So a bit of alternation going on, short and sharp for wave two, and then actually, short and sharp, and then longer in duration for wave four. And I would say they're both pretty deep, but it almost looks like wave four is just as deep, right? So if you want to pull out the fib, there you had around 50% for wave two, and then if you do that again for wave four, you had an even deeper correction. So a bit of alternation in different ways there, but also the whole pattern is beginning to get choppier as it progresses, right? You can see compared to the first move, the A wave, this pretty sharp move, this one started to go more slanted. Um, so, that's probably due to the weakness in this market. So, that's probably why you haven't seen it skyrocket like a lot of people have, said that it would. But, you know, not to say that it won't in the future, right? But like everything else that I've been analyzing, we have to wait for this mini melt up before we get the E wave crash, which is going to be pretty severe, or it might not be severe, right? We don't know. Like we just have to wait for it to happen. There is no rule that says it can go. It can't go down. For example, from where I think it's going roughly, it can't go down to $900. There's no rule saying it can't go down to $450, right? There's no rule saying anything. You just don't know. So we're just going to use the charts, different charts as we track this thing, to figure that out, right? As we go. Okay, we don't know. That's the key point here, is that we don't know. Okay, so the only thing that we can use as a guide is the waves, just to sort of try and figure out what is going on, what's the deal, right? So if we zoom into this, right, I'll just switch to a different chart for a moment of gold. Just zoomed in. Let's zoom into the daily for a moment. Okay, so we have a look at this particular um, count, and we can see a 1, 2, 3, and what I believe is now a complete 4, wave 4, right? So we had for wave. So obviously we're looking at the fifth wave here, right? Since 2015, we're looking for 5 waves up for wave 5, so fifth of the fifth of the fifth, right? We're basically going to be in a fifth wave of the larger fifth wave, right? So probably not a fifth of the fifth of the fifth, but a fifth of the fifth wave. That'll do. So we had 1, 2, that was pretty deep correction, and then wave 4 kind of expanded the correction to the upside. Okay, so this particular count, there's only one thing on this count that doesn't make sense. Everything else makes sense. So when that happens, then I'm likely to fall into the camp of, making an exception because any other way doesn't make sense. Okay, so that's what happens with the waves. When nothing else makes sense and you can find something that makes sense except for one thing, then potentially you're looking at a winner, especially if it lines up with a lot of other stuff going on in the markets, right? So at this point, if we, like, for example, look at the end of wave 3, the March 2020 crash, I believe that was a zigzag, a fast zigzag, and then we had a B wave bounce. Okay, and that's what made this wave 4 expand to the upside. Okay, so I was thinking that this was a wave 3 at one point, but then having a logical look at this, you never had wave A go into the price territory of wave 1 and 2, and then you had this thing expand to the upside. So it's definitely a funky looking 5 wave move. But in saying that, in saying that it's weak, it expanded to the upside, but it did come back down sort of to the same area as the end of wave 3. So to me, it's like a type 2 expanded, but not much. It didn't, wave E didn't end that far above wave 3. So I can't say it's really that expanded. It's almost type 1, but it's not important. The important thing is now we've had confirmation of the end of this correction, right? So I have waited a while to put this out, as I just didn't want to continue down the same track. I was waiting to see some kind of confirmation that looked more reliable. So yeah, so let's just drill down to the 4 hour. So the one thing that I had to let go, just give me a sec. Excuse me. The one thing that I had to basically allow for was this wave 5 truncation. Okay, so if this here looks like a wave A, right? So you can see the knot in the middle. If you go to RSI, there's no wave 3 is being the sharpest. To me, it can classify as a zigzag. The midway point is not sharp. It looks like there's 2 parts to this, or 3 if you want to be more specific. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense for that to be doing that and then get a B wave bounce and then get a 5 wave move. So this would be a type 1 weak 5 wave move. So you had your wave 1 like so. You had basically your wave 3. Okay, wave 3 can't be the shortest, and then you had a sharp wave 4 correction, and a bit deeper. See, this wave 2 was a little shallow and fast, and the other one, wave 4, was like a bit longer and deeper, right? So, and then we had wave 5 zigzag down. Okay, so these are all zigzags. 1's a zigzag, 3's a zigzag, 5's a zigzag, right? So once we got there, the only problem is we didn't make a final low in that wave V, right? Now, I can think of probably 2 things off the top of my head that could, suggest why this happened, which is probably going to be interesting for you, especially if you follow these waves. So number 1, wave 3 cannot be the shortest. So at this stage, wave 1 looks like it's the longest. So if wave 5 was to go any longer, it wouldn't be able to be. Wave 3 wouldn't be. It'd be the shortest. Okay, wave 3 would be the shortest if this move had kept going down. any lower, right? And then also, like, because weakness in the move down also probably made it truncate, even though I'm not a big fan of the word truncate. These things are rare, but they do happen on occasion, I suppose. The weakness in the move down, I mean, it was getting, it was never a strong move, right? For this to be a five wave move, I mean, look at how long it took. I mean, this thing took about a year, basically a whole year, just for the wave C. I mean, that if that's not a long bloody five wave move, then I don't know what is. And then you had this move here, which I believe is wave D, zigzag, and then an E, right? And that E to me is when basically once it came back up, it meant something. And I just couldn't put my finger on it. When I thought this was going to be a zigzag wave five in the past, once it didn't make a new high, it was a bit strange because it didn't make sense that it would do that. And then this other pattern started to appear and didn't make sense in terms of a five wave move either. So it can't have been that. Okay, so that's when I sort of said, okay, step back for a bit, let it work itself out, and then it'll come to you, right? And I think this is a key component is patience, having patience and letting things unfold, especially when they're corrections and they're lengthy corrections. It's a good idea to let them unfold to then it gives you an idea of what to expect next, and I think that's pretty cool. I think that's a key component to all charts, really. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that basically, as soon as we broke the start of wave E, we confirmed a wave one up. Okay, so this is wave one of the move that's coming to the upside. Okay, so that means that this must be wave two. Okay, so what does that look like at this point? Well, I would suggest, okay, let's just do this, right? Let's just label it a little bit of this, just so we can get an understanding of what we're looking at here. Okay, so let's just say we have wave one. Okay, now this particular correction here, does that look like a complete correction or just a zigzag? Right, that's the first question you ask. And in my opinion, I would say that the first move here looks like, well, yeah, I would say that that looks like a zigzag there, right? So you've got wave A. Okay, because you've got wave A zigzag, that I'm probably going to say that the correction is all built into this zigzag. Okay, it just makes sense that it is. So trying to like mold waves into things that they're not is just something that you get used to doing. After a while, you start to question yourself and say, "Are you doing that because it looks? Is that to do with some kind of bias that you have? Like, are you biased towards it being complete now, or biased towards it being a more of a lengthy correction? You just got to ask yourself that question, because that can be important if you're trying to identify a wave and you have this hidden reason why you might suspect it's something else. Got to be careful with that. I think that can definitely lead to problems. And then to me, this now down here would be a wave E. Okay, so obviously for this to be confirmed, for it to be valid, you can't go down the bottom of the critical support end of wave four, right? The red line there, right? You just can't. You just cannot. This would be completely invalidated if this didn't keep going higher from here now. Okay, not just the count would be invalidated, but the whole structure would be invalidated. And yeah, what else can I say to you? We'd have to go back to square one. And I don't think that's the case. Everything's kind of lining up with a lot of other stuff that's going on at the moment. So to me, it's definitely a sign that things are going to turn around soon for most markets. However, to get to confirmation, once again, we need to break the start of wave E, which is up there. So it's good that we broke the first magenta line. But then, if you want to keep adding to your position or something like that, you know, you'd have to wait for some other confirmation, and more than likely that would be the confirmation. And then obviously, impulsive manner to the upside, wave three. Now, just to finish this analysis off, what are our targets and why? Okay. Uh, I'm only going to choose to go with a very simple approach this time because I'm going to count the waves as they happen. Um, okay, so that might be a problem potentially, but we don't know. Okay, so why did I measure these moves here? There's a red line and a green line. Okay, so the first measurement, the red one, is the length of wave one, which occurred back here from 2015 to 2016, roughly. Right, that length there from the end of wave four up to that red line there is about 2,300. Doesn't seem like it's going to be that, because look at the size of wave one. Unless this move turned out to be like a weak 5 wave move, where you had like wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, where obviously it's like a ending pattern. That could potentially happen, right? Or potentially it could go to 2,500, but that wave one still looks kind of long for that, right? So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this does play out. But I mean, looking at the size of that, there's probably one more thing we can check in order to determine what that target could be potentially, if it's not one of these targets. Obviously, you'd have to see the 5 waves unfold. Not just because you hit a line and you're going to sell. I think that's probably not the way to do it. You'd probably want to be looking at other things too. So let's just go back to the weekly chart for a second, right? We go and have a look at what looks like the so um so okay, sorry. Look at wave one here, the larger wave one, right? Look at wave two, look at wave three. Okay, go to RSI. That high was the highest on the RSI. That usually indicates wave three price action. While the third wave of the previous first wave was also pretty high. So fair enough, whatever. That's not the point. The point is, which one of these is longer? You'd have to measure them, right? As long as wave three is not the shortest, you'd be able to measure against that particular wave, and then measure from like the bottom of wave four since 2015, right? Measure from that length to match the length of the wave that's not, whichever's. It looks like it could be wave one. Okay, if it starts there, and that's the hard part about this, is to figure out where that correction ended back here, because it didn't end down here. I don't believe this move up here started down here, right? Because it just doesn't make sense according to Ariaswave. That's not a full correction right there. Okay, so that's an important key component there. So you'd measure from roughly maybe $370 to 1,029, and then measure wave three. If wave three is shorter, then you'd use the same length as wave three, and then extrapolate that, from the red line up. Potentially, that could be a target. We could have an extended fifth wave, and that could be the end of this move. So we could have a parabolic move to the upside there. Um, you know, we'll see how this goes, and as things progress, I will then provide an update on the situation, and see what's happening. But whatever's coming, it looks like it's going to be fairly parabolic blow off top type scenario. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.